That's how it was. So we're going to get Lewis up and running here. His amazing reflections back on his time at West End Baptist Church. Wanted to welcome you all this morning. Thank you so much for getting up and, on this cold and still dark Friday morning. I'm Kevin Patton, and I'm a member here at Edgewwod Presbyterian Church and a leader of our Friday morning Bible study, which this is an expanded version of to Lewis and all of you. We started a study back in September of the civil rights movement in Birmingham using John Archibald's book, Shaking the Gates of Hell. And through that book, John, who's just walked in and sitting down in the back there, introduces the civil rights movement to the John, like me, was born in 1963, and in 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote his letter from a Birmingham jail. Dr. King had come to Birmingham saying that there's injustice anywhere, it affects justice everywhere. And there was injustice in Birmingham, and he came and marched in violation of the and found himself in Birmingham jail, where he wrote that famous letter to the 8 white pastors of Birmingham, who he anticipated allies in his struggle for civil rights, and was sorely disappointed when those ministers did not actively support Dr. King's cause, but instead urged caution and to wait. And Dr. King was very strong in coming out and how wait most often never to oppress people. But as our thinkers worked through John's book, we started off with detail. John came in, introduced his book, introduced his father, Brother Bob, to us, who was a Methodist minister. Served in a number of congregations, both in Central and North Alabama. Heard wonderful stories in the book, and our group has been discussing them on fishing and camping. It's many congregations, and always looking at now up against that. John realized after his father's death and went back to sermons. John's father said very little about the civil rights movement as it was happening. And that's the focus of John's book. Is what good is it to have a pulpit if you don't use it? And then the larger question, all of us here today, what are we doing that we have? So our group is, we've got 100 last weeks looking at that question. And are closing it out today with Lewis. And Lewis, I think, has to look at it to this whole discussion because Lewis is those courageous ministers who did stand up, who did take a stand during a time that it was extremely difficult to do so and suffered consequences for taking that stand. And so Lewis took a young man up on the 4th year, was a minister at a very early age, maybe 14 years old, as a still young pastor, 35, in the West End Baptist Church, which was a 3,500 member congregation, very strong in 1964, and then saw that dramatic as integration came in, white flight over the mountain, all the struggles of maintaining a large Baptist church in the West End there. And Lewis was steadfast on the way to approach that. And I'll let him tell about the country that ensued. After leaving West End, after a big dispute, the church with the Board of Deacons, Lewis opened another church for a while, and then moved into academia as a dean of business, and then into business itself, where he was very successful later in life. With that, I'll turn it over to Lewis. He's the man who came here this morning, and let him explain his journey. So, Lewis, if you will. Towards our discussion at 8, I know we steps in here, so Lewis will guide us to 8 o'clock and perhaps address any questions you might have.
I've been given permission to remove my mask up here. I would like to begin with a prayer that I heard the first Sunday that Margie and I were in Birmingham. Lord, I thank you this morning that I'm not no cooling board and no funeral home, but I'm fully clothed in my right mind. Amen. But none of us are on the cooling board yet. I'm probably not too far away. But do any of you know how to pronounce this word, O-U-A-C-H-I-T-A? Correct. Washington. Did all the rest of you know how to pronounce that? Okay. That's a parish I'm from in Louisiana. That accounts for a lot of the rough edges that I gladly present. I see people here that are baptized. I see people here who are members of West End from Sanford. A lot of you that I don't know, and new friends that I've made, and I'm happy to be here with all of them. I went to high school in Monroe, Louisiana. I went to a little college that's south of Sanford, Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi. I then went to Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, where I met my wife, who had a bad fall this week, so they could be here. Then went to Union on the Columbia campus, studied under some fairly prominent theologians, Paul Tillich, John Bennett, and Harry Emerson Fawcett from Riverside Baptist Church in New York City. Those men had a tremendous influence on my life. The only thing I had to say about the president of Southern Seminary, his name was Hugh. And he was called Duke because he was no count. He was the only man that I know of who could strut while he was seated. So that was the kind of background I had at Southern Seminary. Some of you, I think, Southern also. He has since, well, they're already walking out. That's my educational background. I came to West End from a church right outside of Dothan in Headland, Alabama, with about 1,500 members. West End had about 3,500 members. And we did fine for 3 or 4 years. We built an education building, essentially going fine. We had pockets of poverty that I began to realize we were not even touching. It was Chicago Flats, West Princeton, Eureka Springs, other parts of West End that nobody was ever looking at or driving through. We began a bus ministry that had food on board. It had medical supplies, basic medical supplies. It had dental supplies, basic. We didn't have a dentist operating out of the bus, but we referred them to a dentist at UAB School of Dentistry that did dental work for all people, regardless of their race. Then we started a ministry inside the church, which was meant to attract people from those various poverty pockets and others as well. And we had anywhere from 40 to 75 or 80 young people who came to that Saturday ministry. We had movies. We sang Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog, a very good friend of mine. We sang Jesus Loved Me, and He Loves All the Little Children of the World and all that. We handed out New Testament, handed out toothbrush. In Alabama, they're called toothbrushes, not teeth brushes. Best pickup line at Alabama is nice tooth. But thank you, Ken. We had medical supplies, all supplied by dental students and medical students who were members of West End Church. That began, I noticed on those Saturday meetings, I noticed and should have known that it meant something, but I'm a little dense anyway, coming from that kind of parish. I noticed some of the deacons began to circulate around the other end of the gymnasium and give a very scrupulous look at what we were doing, since there were black kids there and white kids there. And there were more blacks than there were whites inside a Baptist church in 1968, 1969. In 1963, the 63rd Baptist Church was bombed. John F. Kennedy was killed in that decade. Robert Kennedy was killed in that decade. Martin Luther King was killed in that decade. The dogs were loosed prior to that in Birmingham. Fire hoses were turned on black kids in Birmingham. And certainly it spilled over into the church, and the church, I thought, should not be a salt shaker. That's what a church is. It's a beautiful salt shaker. But I thought salt needed to get out of the salt shaker and get into the community, flavor the community, preserve the community, and do what was right instead of what was wrong in the community. I didn't know the price I would have to pay for that. and my family. I want to read what my daughter, have I knocked that off? Yours is looking much better. This is from my daughter, Amy, who lives in Mobile. This is what she had to say. I remember the times in the third grade. One day the deacons and church members were bringing us food and lighting our water heater first. Next day they were scooping up their kids, making sure my brother was nowhere near their dogs. Walking down the hall to school and being called an in-law. Fine, upstanding churchgoers showing a child exactly that they were made of piss and vinegar. And then I'll read the rest of it. Anytime the leadership of the deacons change, know anything about Baptist church, they are governed by a group of deacons that are elected by the church congregation, as is the pastor also elected by the congregation. It is not a district superintendent that determines who the pastor is. It is not a bishop. By the way, we have a retired Catholic bishop, Paul Baker, who lives right across the street from us. Wonderful. When I went to the opera, I met beautiful Catholic monks. I didn't see any priests. Nuns were doing the work of God with guarding children. Between 500,000 and 2 million be offered of the Igbo tribe, starved to death. That further heightened the anxiety of my church members, because when I returned, Wally Henley and Leonard Chamberlain, other reporters and the Alabama Baptists, they took pictures of those children, naked little children who were suffering from orgeal, which was the Igbo word for starvation. Their stomachs were swelled, their hair had turned gray, age 5, 6, 7. And I got probably 25 anonymous letters about being shown with naked children. The gist of the letters was, here are Wilhite's innards. It would be much more effective if I could say that word, but Sid told me I couldn't say it. Here are Wilhite's innards. Pictures of little starving children. And I did the best I could do there. I went in with Harry Reason, yes, from Sao Tome and Angola. We flew Lisbon to Angola and then Sao Tome, then International Red Cross, into a very rough runway. Igbo land called the Biafra for the last years. I think it was disbanded as a nation 70 or 1970. That heightened the anxiety of the churchmen. The fact that I would go to black tribe in Africa, give $10,000 that was raised by the Alabama State Pension. I will give credit for that. Then when I returned, we raised about 160. That was a lot of money that went through our foreign mission board. to God. But it didn't help me with standing with the church. And finally, when the church changed membership, Connie Proctor, who's sitting right there, I baptized. His father was the chairman of the deacon, and a very literate, well-informed leader of the deacons. That leadership passed on to a less intelligent person, how shall I say it? Uninformed, unaware, racist. So how do you describe someone like that in a place of leadership? That person would make those rounds around in the gymnasium along with other older white men as blacks were there. I baptized black. We couldn't find a baptistry that would allow us to baptize a black in Birmingham, Alabama. We finally, thanks to Charlie Christmas, Philadelphia Baptist Church in Wilhite, allowed us to baptize not only a black gentleman, but Howard Moffitt, who was the husband of Ida B. Moffitt, and his founder of the Ida B. Moffitt School of Nursing in San Francisco, very dedicated purpose that I was dedicated to. And when Deacon, I just described, just out of nowhere, I was home with the influenza, and at the Deacon, he made a motion that no blacks of any kind be allowed to enter West End Baptist Church except interview for a janitorial or a dietary job. I could not mention such a stupid resolution. It took me aback. I should have known what it would cost me career-wise. It was the end of my career. As Wayne Flint said, the end of your career. I think the end of my calling as a pastor. There were no other churches that would take a pastor who had condoned women being active in the church, places of leadership in the church, or blacks in the church, either one, or have gays singing in the choir. When I told them, pulpit committees that came from some beautiful churches, because I did my research into a church city that I might want to go there, but the minute that I mentioned to the pulpit committee how the Baptist work the pulpit, the minute I mentioned that I thought blacks should be admitted to the church and that women should have places of leadership, they challenged me, and they challenged me with the Bible. And I said, I don't want to be your pastor. And they said, we don't want you. So it was a mutual thing. I had 3 pulpit committees that I know of. One of them was a beautiful church that was in the salt shaker and never got out of the salt shaker. When we left West End, about 100, when I resigned after that motion, not to allow any blacks inside the church. The group of blacks and whites, they were allowed, by the way, the homeless, allowed both black and white, to sleep in Sunday school rooms because they had nowhere else to sleep. Margie and I put funds together with the help of church members, and we bought a house for several families, for several families. I think we bought a total of 3 houses over the 10-year period from black to, we later sold those houses, trying to get a deduction on them. And I couldn't because I wanted to designate people from black who were there, Sherman, his family, and others, and Carol, and others. They'd be allowed to stay in those houses. And you couldn't get a deduction, try to tell the IRS what to do with that property. So it was just false. When I gave it to them, I told them, you just pay the tax every year. The house is yours. 2 of them paid the tax. 1 of them never paid. All of that led up about 100 families pulling out of Western Metro and starting Arlington in the sport. There's a long history, and I don't have time to go Arlington in the last for about 2 years. A lot of it was my fault, because I had a full-time job out there. The fact that it had a large issue is not able to be here. The fact that it had on was had nowhere to live. We were staying in the church's pastoral. 2 women who were wives have children. Know the feeling what it must be like for a wife not to have a house, not to have a place, being pressured by 18 deacons to get our, you know what, out of the pastoral. There were 9 deacons who voted against it. Oh, by the way, 1 who's here today, who voted against the motion not to allow. Those men were braver than I ever. But they had to go back into the community. I could get out of the community. Those men were men that one of them was a physicist, and they were very literate, well-informed men. But the majority, the 18 who voted against them, I would say, were not. That's basically the story. I baptized in Philadelphia Baptist Church. I baptized Howard Moffett out of whom I fished and hunted. That comes out of the by the rough way that I speak. I'm certainly literate way that I would have probably noticed. But that's about the story of the Western. It didn't last a whole lot longer. Main leadership of the church pulled out and went to Arlington and the church. The Church of the Covenant split off the First Baptist Church with the same issue that I taught. I'll open it up to questions. I've talked too long. Yes. Sorry, I didn't hear.
I want to hear a little bit more on the effect on Archie.
Archie went in search of a house. And she found the house she wanted. She went all over Birmingham. The house she wanted was in an area called Forest Park. Our kids thought it was a slum area because the house didn't have air conditioning. It was a 3-story house. A person here has lived in that house. She knows more about the house than probably I do. It became a lonely house, but our children thought we from an air conditioned to an unair conditioned building. We paid sitting. Are you here? Betty? Betty's not here. Oh, Betty, you are here. How are you doing? Betty made a loan to us, $6,000. You let me tell her that already. Betty is the widow of Dr. John Slaughter, who was head of the VA hospital. Betty was in full support of Burlington and made it possible for us to buy a house. About 3 years after we moved into Forest Park, the yuppies began to come into Forest Park, restore some of those houses. Ours had been vacant at one time for 5 years. Window panes were broken out of it, the wallpaper was falling off, and all this. So you can see why our kids thought it was slum area. It's so other than slum area. It's one of the finest neighborhoods in Birmingham. That's about my story. There's a lot I can tell you about the childhood that I was. My dad was with the Corps of Engineers, and I was allowed to go, on the dredge boat top on the Mississippi River. Not many young people ever had that. And some of you who read my Facebook know more about that than me. Other experiences that I was privy to as a youngster, because he was in the Corps of Engineers, and not any other young people. I started preaching when I was 13. I had a lot of revivals. Then I was called to pastor a church when I was 17. I was ordained. The way Baptists do it is, when you are called to preach, you're licensed. If you get up in the pulpit and say license. Then when you become a pastor, you are ordained. Those are the two liturgies of the passage of being a pastor. And that's about all. I go into a lot. Have already covered the name of President Southern being Duke. He was Duke because he was a no count. He was a no count. He was the only man I knew of struck while sitting down. I already said. I mean, it's a typical Lewis. That's how old were you here in this picture? How old were you in this picture? 13. Okay. It was written up in Monroe, Louisiana paper. I didn't mean for any of that. There was Bob Jones and Chicken. When did you live in Natchitoches? I lived in Natchitoches probably when I was in the second or third grade. I went to first, second, third grade. So my dad was anchored there in grade. I can't spell Natchitoches today. The first word I ever learned to spell in school, Natchitoches, Louisiana. Have any of you been in Natchitoches? It claims to be the oldest city in America in direct opposition to St. Augustine, Florida. But beautiful. We live in the Wilhite. And how long they had pumps. And the Cane River, where it's still magnolia, still magnolia. Do you have any questions?
Daddy, I've got a question. Can you hear me?
end of my pastor. Wow. No churches, no Baptist churches, maybe churches at all that I knew. Black members. That's certainly not baptized. Because they joke, some of my fellow pastors joke about baptism, you've got to get rid of the afro part. Eventually turn into aluminum foil. This unreal mentality of people who didn't want to face the issue. I have known the cost of it. To be real honest, I don't know that I would put my family through that again. It was not just me ending my career. Thanks to people like Betty, I had another place to go. Other people helped me during that time. Yes.
Louis, I know enough about you to know that eventually the end of the passage wasn't in there, but it was not the end of your ministry. You do have more people.
Thank you. Sandy,
Dad, can you hear me?
taught pathology at First Alabama healthcare system. Very good number indirect way with our family. And brilliant man. Karen?
You can read the rest of Amy's letter.
Amy's letter.
You said you were going to read the rest of Amy's letter?
Rest of Amy's letter. Rest of Amy's letter.
I was going to read it at the end.
Oh,
Are you ready for it to end?
Louis, in Sid's blog that he wrote about you talk a little bit about the physical dangers, things that you guys look for the family there lived in the house during this period. Congregation.
Well, I was called by the chaplain at Philly Prison, told that there is a man here who will be released who is absolutely obsessed with killing people. I didn't pay a long days went by. Our cottage family slept on the stairs of the split level house. Let out a yell I'd never heard. The whole family. Someone had come 2/3 up the stairway, hit on the killer because he called me the next morning. I'll kill you yet in loving SOB. Scared our children. I got my gun, and I was a good shot. I could hit a dove flying 50 miles an hour. I learned that in Louisiana. Got my gun, I told Sergeant police. For some reason, he ran out after the dog scared him and us. Ran out the front door, get in his car. I had my gun. I had it pointed right at him. And our oldest daughter, married to Stanley's and Carol's son. Yeah, I got it. Our oldest daughter said, "Don't shoot him, Dad, don't shoot him." I wanted to shoot him so bad I didn't know what to do. And I could have hit him dead on. When I killed him, I would have done serious damage. I think I had duck shot. in the number 4 shot. I had a duck shot in my gun. I didn't have a 7, I had a hot car. Tommy, do you have any questions? You were never arrested.
I just had to.
Yeah, not long.
Okay. I was part of the, I had a history.
If you go up to the pulpit, then the folks at home will be able to hear.
We can hear you. Okay, thank you. In 1963, no, I'll go back a year. 1962, I was 5 years old. I had a history or reputation, especially with my parents, of standing up for my friends and family to the point I would get in trouble, possibly hurt. I think they took this in consideration as to why we was adopted 3.5 months from Louisiana. And we had a connection kind of that way. Running together, we know stuff. Listen, Alabama, Auburn, on radio. And my dad was a good man. Today, Mom got our principal, which was 100 years old yesterday. My son's 80. My emotions, November 16th, 1997. That was the day that I get emotional. That day, my mom got out of Princeton, had cancer surgery, thought it was removed, everything. She got an infection, she left 9 days later. It was my history. Yeah. Anyway.
Would you tell them about your time in West Virginia?
Yes, thank you. Yes, keep me on track. So at 5 years old, we were going to leave. My dad was a football coach, head football coach at West End. It was Big Five, and Alabama and Auburn got together and made Legion Field sack. My mom was going to make.
Would you get your membership at West Virginia?
Yes. One of the biggest things I remember at West End Baptist Church was that it took me a period. My first realization that God was real, age 6, on a trip out west and all the grandkids. And then a year later, he came. It was the year that I accepted Christ as my Savior. My mom was out of bed. We told Lewis, and it was also sitting in the tent a year after the bombing. What I remember about it was that I was wanting to be protected. When it happened, my parent says there was bombing, people got killed. I said, man, that's bad. That's bad. God's going to be. That was my mindset. And Dad said they were different than me. I said, God's kid. You know, you're God's people, you're God's people.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to tell about your dad.
Tell about the time that you were baptized.
wife. That's what.
Yeah, but
So the next year, I was baptized. Next year, hey, you took me from, wasn't like.
You're going my way, at least you feel and you're
baptized. 2 years.
Yeah.
So, what Lucas wants to tell me and to tell you is, when I was baptized, I was short. I was the second biggest kid both ways. They had this little foot thing.
You want this chair?
It was grass. They had a little foot thing that you stand in the Baptist. Yeah. I slipped and my foot went up. And Lewis, I think, kind of panicked. I mean, instead of, being baptized, taking people coming to baptize, Lewis kicked into, I'm grabbing you and pulling you up. And then there was a silence. And I was looking straight ahead. And he says, don't look out to the for the congregation. Like, why? I may be an OCD. Why? And I looked, and then everybody started laughing. And he started laughing. But I laughed. But it was just crazy. He thought I was going to drown. I said, I always thought God had an interesting sense of humor from that point on. We say sense of humor. Jesus does have humor. He expressed that in the scripture. A little different than our humor, but we talk things we don't understand sometimes. God's humor, I think. Anyway,
Thank you, Tom.
good. I've been to seminary. I have a hard time.
I know that. I love you, brother.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I got the story out.
How did you feel about your fellow?
Well, there were none of them ever came to our door and offered support. There were some that absolutely called me a socialist. There were some that called me a Marxist. Some that called me a communist because we were feeding people, kept a closed closet, and we gave out New Testaments. They neglected to say that we also baptizing some of those blacks. They just talked about the fact that we were feeding. That was socialism back then. So we couldn't do that. Some of them were supported. Herb Gilmore was very supportive. The editor of the Baptist paper never took a stand for us or on the racial issue. But the associate editor, Jack Brown, any of you know Jack Brown? You didn't know. Jack Brown joined our church. He was the associate editor. And Jack supported us all the way. But that's a good question. There were no men. I was a member of the Greater Birmingham Ministry. I was the only Baptist Greater Birmingham Ministry. I was on the Jefferson County Board of Mental Health. We started a halfway house for people kind of right, trying to get them jobs. I was a member of the notorious Jefferson County Commission on Economic Opportunity, which is still going through its boils, even to today. If you open the news, know that they disbanded 3 or 4 weeks ago and got back. It was run by Dave Singleton, the record. There was a black gentleman who really ran but my membership in those organizations did not help my reputation with the deacons at the Baptist Church. The fact that I spoke in Cumberland and at Southern Seminary, Southern would call it Liberal, Southern Baptist Seminary, New Orleans and Southwestern Tom is a graduate in Southwest, and they were more concerned. But Louisville was branded as, then certainly Union, Columbia campus, was branded. Harry Emerson Positive with Riverside Church. Church members thought he was liberal. And the word liberal back then was as powerful as any other negative that I know of. To be called a liberal, a Baptist church, with just the death of pastor. There were other indications I was a liberal, socialist, which I'm not. I've met two communists in my life. They were in Beijing, and they were the most capitalist two people I've ever known. Guys who always had their tips. They loved money. They were communists.
When you talk about your clothes closet and the food, and then being called a liberal or a socialist, I want to read a very quick Bible passage. People use the Bible against you, right? You said people use the Bible against you.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I want to read Matthew 25:42. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. And I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not remember me. They said, Lord, what did you say you hungry or a stranger? Truly I tell you, whatever you do for the least of me.
That's what I believe. And I preach that. I also preach that a church should minister. And Sid has helped me reinforce that belief. That a church should minister regardless. If the community changes colors, which West had, that zip code now is the highest crime zip code in Jefferson County. There were 5 murders one night about 2 weeks ago, and all of them took place in West End or Central Park or in that area. The pharmacist on one end of our block, 15th Way Southwest, where we live, the pharmacist was murdered. Our groceryman, beautiful Italian gentleman, who would ride the grocery on his bicycle to our house, he was murdered. The person who moved into the pet store where we lived was murdered. So on one block in West End, well, about 3 blocks, but on one road, one street, see, that's the Washington stuff coming out. It was a street. There were 3 murders on that street in about a year period. So West End became a dangerous, still is, a dangerous place. There are still my friends who live, and there are some of your friends, but it's not the safest zip code in the world, I will assure you. Okay.
Were you and your family ever able to find church?
Let me get closer there.
Were you and your family able to find a church after all this happened?
Well, we attended St. Luke's Episcopal Church because later John Claypool was pastor there for the friend. And Clark Gillespie, who recently died, he was an Episcopal friend of mine, supported us all the way through this. We became friends because he was an official with the Baptist system, and I was a trustee at the Baptist level. That further got me in trouble. Because when I was a trustee of Baptist level, we bought the property where Montclair was located. That cost $11 million back then. I'm telling you, what is yours? That's where Montclair Hospital is located. We got a lot of criticism for that $11 million. If you remember, Howard's Baptist Hospital was by the western, on Howard, by Otay or the western. Remember that little corner there where there's a service station now? That was about a 20-bed hospital. And it became Montclair Hospital. In addition to West End Hospital, which I call it. Okay.
You mentioned a while ago, question now, price that you paid, that your family had paid for your taking a stand. Don't know now going back to it and taking a stand. Our men's group has explored John's book, Shaking the Gates of Hell. He talks about his father taking a stand in certain ways and not taking a stand from the pulpit. And I wonder if John has a comment for us, especially the men's group, because we really explored that throughout his book. There seems to be a love there with his father for an amazing influence upon his life. So I was listening to what you said about the impact you're taking a stand had upon your family. And then John's story in Shaking the Gates of Hell.
John, you want to help us out?
Sure. First of all, a comment. I just want to thank you for your courage, or perhaps your goodness that made you not question whether doing the right thing was a matter of courage. But I do want to know, it's the consequences of those actions. Do you regret anything you ever did? Or is that something that you're proud of and makes you?
Oh, yeah, I did some bad things that I regret doing.
I'm not out of it, you can
Brother, don't tell about those.
Yeah, we're not talking about that, Bob. Bob's digging up all that stuff. But I don't, as I look back on resigning, I would do that again. But there was nowhere to go. There were no other churches to go to. And except for Betty, we would have been homeless and penniless. And Betty Slaughter made it possible for us to make that transition. I will love you forever for that. Yes, you're going to speak loud.
How did your daughter in the Baptist Community Government I never asked any of that.
Would somebody repeat that?
Your daughter Amy went to John Carroll, Baptist Catholic. How did a Baptist minister's daughter end up going to a Catholic high school?
Because she wanted to.
And speaking of Amy, I have a question from Amy. She just texted. So this is from Lewis's daughter, Amy. I'm watching via Zoom. You please ask him how he realized racism was wrong at such an early age, even though it was all around. Where did he and Mom find the courage?
That's my daughter.
This is Amy. Just
Hi, Amy. She's a Mobile.
She's watching via Zoom. She's watching you.
Well, I guess I knew that, but I didn't. I knew we were on Zoom somehow. Amy wanted to go to John Carroll. She broke there. She broke the Catholic mafia at John Carroll High School and became friends with all of the Italians in town. But to this day, people like Kathy Renetti, people like that, were dear Kathy deceased about a year ago, I think. How long ago when you?
About
our son wound up in a private segregation camp. They were popping up all over Birmingham. Kids that didn't want to go to integrated schools, their parents would send them to these little segregation high schools. Are you about Panama? Oh, okay, oh, okay. And our other daughter braved the integrated school at Ramsey High School, Susan, who married to Hal. And she was a cheerleader at an integrated high school and got along fine. And our son tried to play basketball there with 15 blacks who were faster and better basketball players. So, and roughed him up. They were taking out years of subdued hostility out of a kid who was trying to play basketball in an all-black basketball team. He wound up going to Birmingham's segregation academy and getting awfully inferior education that were being put out by the segregation.
Lewis.
Yeah.
Amy asked a question, real good question.
I'll ask you again.
Ask it again.
And he wants to know how you knew that racism was wrong when you were so young, and how did you in your life find the courage to fight it?
I don't know how, because nobody in my family is open. Everybody, my uncles, now this is being recorded, so I have to be careful because I'm still in contact with a lot of them. But my uncles were all racist. My dad was a racist, except I saw him. He hit a dog one time in what was called the colored section. He stopped the car and he got out of the car, picked up the dog, and a little black kid ran up crying, "That's my dog you hit." My dad got down on his knees, and the kid got down on his knees, and my dad cried. With that little black kid. And to me, that took away a lot of the racism that I knew he had. That he had for that little black kid's dog. And I spent a lot of good time on the rivers in Louisiana on this dredge boat. He was the chief operator on the dredge boat Todd, T-O-D-D.
Yeah. Well, Lewis, thank you so much. I'm going to read that last little sentence. Oh, yes, you got a letter from finish or name?
Yeah. This is the continuation of that first part of the paragraph. And then there were some loving church members that helped us, that still talk to us, came to our house, that are still our friends today. Those are the real church in my adult life. I don't go to church, but I find them good. I prefer to stay with them. I can spot an imposter from a mile away, and I have no time. I'm very proud of my father and my mother and how they raised us, how they knew right from wrong. Their love is immense. My son was also attacked, as Susan was. My son, Mark, was attacked inside the Baptist church. lady, I wish I could call her name, but Sid said. But he was called an in-law, like your daddy, me. And he said, I'm proud to be like my dad. That's about, I think I've covered West End Baptist Church. Stay for minutes in case folks who didn't get a chance to ask a question, when they come on, but sure, we can do that. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. This has been just a fabulous close to this study on this tumultuous period, sort of the challenge of doing what is right in the face of consequence. It seems like you were very much man on the tightrope during this time, operating without a safety net, other than people here and the people you talked about who informally came to support you following or leaving the ministry. I think all of us, regardless of our denomination, can think about that. That the brave people we have in our lives who do take stands and suffer consequences for that, what we can do. I think if you're a Lewis, God bless you. You know, if you're not, there's still an awful lot we can do to recognize the Lewises in our midst and provide support. So that fall when it happens, as traumatic for those courageous leaders in their town. So thank you for joining us, sharing your story. Thank you for having me. And thank you all for coming. If I could, I would stand up. Yes, right.